Hello and welcome to Midrats. I'm one half of your co-host, MC2 Van Amberg.
And I'm the other half, MC2 Cash.
And welcome to our new podcast. The idea of this podcast is that it's a little bit of a late night show. You know, we're on the mess decks at midnight.
A little laid back.
Yeah, laid back. Not for the big wigs, you know. If you're a big wig, turn it off right now. And, today we're going to be talking about the USS Cole. That's the special episode that we have in mind. And who else to talk about the USS Cole than Master Chief Ponciano? So Master Chief, welcome to the show. Thank you for being our very special first guest. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I joined back into 1999.
Yes. 6 years old.
I wasn't even born.
Thank you, fellas. So I joined from New Jersey, and I was going to be an RM, or I went to a school in Great Lakes for an RM, and we were actually RMs only for 2 weeks, and then we transitioned to information systems technicians, IT. And so going through the A school, the way that they did what command you went to was you had to select depending on how you did in the class. Mm-hmm. But we all did really bad in this one exam. So our instructor was like, forget the overall score. We're going to go by this exam, which in a way worked out for me because I went from number 2 in the class to actually having to pick like number 6. And I looked at him, I don't know anything about the Navy, right? Yeah. I come from the Dominican Republic to New Jersey. I only had like 3 years that I spoke English, not even that. So I looked at him and I'm like, what should I pick? And he's like, hey, you need to go to a destroyer because that's where ITs get to know everything, right? Then I was like, okay, well, can I at least pick the newest destroyer at the time? And that just happened to be, as far as the ones that were available, was the USS Cole. She was commissioned in 1996. So I took orders to the Cole and, took leave after finished A school. And, back then there was no, gender in your orders.
Oh, okay.
So they thought I was a female when I showed up to the show. So my rack was for the female berthing. So that quite did not work out. And I learned that a very valuable lesson at that time that us ITs, because we stand 24/7, right? Like it's one of those rates that like we have to be, as far as on the ship, be ready for comms at all times. I slept on radio my first night, but it just become part of what we do as an IT. So I just got really indoctrinated really quickly. So, so that's that just a little bit into the segue into coming into the Cole and having the reason why I picked that ship.
Yeah, it really started on the ground floor,
3 years old, commissioned in 96?
So 96, so it was her second deployment because she was commissioned in 96 and this is like 99 and we went on deployment in 2000.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Well, let me ask you, going from A school to the ship, what was the biggest, shock?
So, of course, you listen to whatever your sponsor is telling you, especially like when you're fresh like I was. I was actually supposed to take like 30 days leave before, but because the ship was going to go underway and do Com2X, which is one of the exercises, like the main exercise before deployment, my sponsor was like, hey, it will be really good if you get your sea legs before,
gotta get them early.
before you go on deployment. And so I got there earlier, but the biggest impression I had is that, and you guys will know this, is that ship smell. That is hard to explain.
Yeah.
And you cannot pinpoint it to what it is. You don't know if it's dust, if it's metal, if it's food. It just all those things together, it hit me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of I guess I made a face because the IT3 that was with me, he's like, yeah, you smell that, huh?
That's the ship.
Yeah, and then it was like, welcome to the ship.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that struck me. And then the next day when we had quarters in the morning, it was that sense of family right away I felt from not so much me yet with them, but the rest of the division.
The camaraderie.
Right? The camaraderie was like, I saw that right away. It was from the jokes, from the conversations that we're having and things like that. And then how quickly they, pull me in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, is your, you got enough of this, and you have this that you were able to put the stuff in your locker. Do you need anything else? Because we were going on the way, I think it's like in the middle of the day, not necessarily straight in the morning. So there were even like, hey, do you need to go to the store before we go on the way? You have everything, just the little things, you have your shower shoes, you have,
those are
the things that are very important,
yeah.
right? Shower shoes, deodorant, soap, like those kind of things, and to me, that made me feel at ease. Like, okay, I'm with people that actually care and want to take care of me. But it was definitely very surprising, and then also like I was very nervous, extremely nervous. Just because you get trained to be whatever your specialty is, right? Whatever your job is, but there's things that only you're gonna know on the ship. Yeah. That you don't get trained for any of that anywhere else.
It definitely, exactly what you say. They tell you one thing, and then you find out that on-the-job training is a lot more in-depth than school. And I also wanted to hark back on what you were saying about community. I really do feel like the Navy is one of those special places where community really does shine. It can really make or break a command. And we're fortunate in the Navy that we have that. Like, it can be so strong. I know, like, a lot of other places where you work, it's not like that, I know, like, if I asked Cash for something, he would be there right away. But that happens like kind of instantly. You meet these people and all of a sudden everyone like knows each other so well. And I think it's that nature of everyone coming from different places, backgrounds, everything. So it truly is special. So that's awesome to hear that was the first big impression.
It was.
Other than the smell. Yeah.
Taking the smell to the side. It's just, like I said, like, it just makes you feel at ease. And as you say, the level of diversity that you get to see just in my shop, we pretty much had every gender, most of the races, and religions and things, all just in 14 to 15 people shop. So, but you wouldn't know any better, right? We were all the same. The only difference was pay grade. That's just, it was just that level of respect, experience and respect, right? Like, you got to understand, this is almost 25 years ago. So, I couldn't even talk to my chief. You talk to your LPO. You don't even get to that point, right? Like, that's how the culture was back then. But even that, it was with a level of respect. It wasn't so much like, oh, you can't talk to her. It was just simply, hey, follow your chain of command. I got you. You don't need to go that far. If need be, then we'll go there. But even that didn't even feel like it was a bad thing. It was just simply, it's like, we got you, like the second classes and then the first class. So it was I felt very welcoming right away.
That's so my experience on the G-Dub was the opposite. So
sorry.
They're just like, yeah, go figure out like, oh, where I need to get my paper signed. Like, yeah, go down this P-way, look for this door. So whenever I became like the top guy of the shop, like whenever someone came on, I did not want them to have the experience I had. And so I was the guy like, let me walk you to the spot that you need. So the fact that you had that immediately is good. And like,
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I talked to my sailors today a lot about that. That in the sense of too many times, because this is probably what happened to you. Let's say I was in your shop back then. Because I was treated that way, then I'm going to treat you that way. And I tell my sailors all the time, like, especially if it's something was done inappropriately or wrong towards you, be the change. So if exactly, break the cycle. If everybody was treating, I don't care if 100 people came to the department and everybody was treating you just kind of that way, just go do your thing, I can care less. Then be that person that makes that change. Remember how you felt by being just thrown to the wolves, for lack of other words, right? So I'm very big on that, right? One, because I didn't see that, but I've been in other commands where it was just like that. And even as a first class, it was like, hey, figure it out, especially as a first class, you need to figure it out. even though I was overseas.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So I try to tell sailors about anything, right? Like just there's always something you can take, even from the bad leaders and from the bad sailors or whatever, or bad people for that matter. And even if it's simply, I don't want to be that way, or I don't want to do that because I know how that made me feel, and I don't want that person to feel that way.
Yeah.
Bring us to that day.
Okay.
Talk to us about it.
So I got to take you a couple of days back, so
Okay.
kind of get a better understanding of the day of the Cole. So we had a oil leak after we did the Suez Canal. We went to GQ. It was like late at night, and we lost so much fuel that we had to go somewhere to pull in because we couldn't do it on rep, right? So, powers that be said that the closest one and safest one at the time was Aden, Yemen. I was little ITSR Ponciano back then, and I had the privilege to set up the laptop to do the different briefs in the wardroom.
Okay.
And I remember being there, and the communication about what the security of the port was not anything higher than all the other ports that we've been to. And I say that because it's important, because that there's theories and stories of like we were not in the right posture for THREATCOM and things like that. We were, for what we knew at the time, right? So the day of, if you ever been in a DDG, or if you talk to a sailor that's been in a DDG, if you're E5 and below, you're part of every single thing, from OMREP to line handlers to you go FSA, like you do it all. There's no like, for example, in a carrier, you might get away with only having to do ASF, but you didn't do, food service. In the DDG, there's not that many people, so E5 and below,
Everyone's got to do their.
everybody's gonna pull their weight,
yeah.
right? So I say that to say that I was part of the sea and anchor detail, and as we pulling into Yemen, we noticed that there was like 2 or 3 ships that were sunk in the harbor. They were all Yemeni ships, but you never see that. So like that was already something that kind of like bring your hairs on your back, like what's going on?
Something's off.
Yeah, like just yeah, exactly. Like this is not right. This is not what we are used to seeing, especially in a deployment where we were having so much fun. Remember, this is before 9/11. We were at peace at the time, so our schedule before that was we were pull in on a Monday and stayed 3-4 days on whatever port, pull out Friday, and then we were back on another port on Monday. Wow. It was awesome, but I was broke as a seaman.
Went through that paycheck quick.
Yeah, quick. So, so we're coming in here, and it's a completely different vibe already. I do remember that we were going to more facing land, because the way the harbor was, it was kind of like a U. And they had like the refueling pier in the middle of it. And it was a very small pier, maybe the size of this room. That's how small it was. Because it was just a refueling pier. Like, it wasn't for us to do anything else. No. But we were facing land. But the CEO made a very smart call at the time, and even more so later on, which was to have the ship facing upwards. So if something happens,
Get out.
we could just leave. Which meant that we were going to be refueling now on the port side instead of the starboard side. So we're finished with sea and anchor detail. It's secured. I go down the radio because I have watch. And I'm down there with another seaman, IT, Seaman Guana. And then there's also a deck seaman, Wirberly, who wants to strike IT. So we're starting to train him. About an hour and a half, I would want to say, they passed the word that we're going to do early chow for the sea and anchor detail, because we're going to leave earlier than expected. Like, we were refueling so fast that we were supposed to be there like 3 or 4 hours, but we're only going to be there 2. Mm-hmm. So we go to the line. I'm standing on the starboard side. Anybody that's been in a DDG, it's a repair 5, and I can see the line for Chow. But the two sailors that I just spoke about, they want to go ahead of the line, because we're going to be in sea and anchor detail. Me, because one, I want to talk to a young lady. And then 2, because I was like, they're not going to believe ITs have the next watch. So I stayed behind. Within like 5 minutes after that, I heard the loudest noise I ever heard in my life. And my feet came off the ground, and I hit myself in the back and in my head on the bulkhead. And I like lunged forward, and I hit the person that was in front of me. For those first seconds, I didn't know like what happened, right? My first thought was the refueling station exploded. But then I was like, well, I'm standing in the starboard side, so if it happened, it would have happened to me right now. So then I look and I see, and I'm not trying to make light of this because too many people passed away and got hurt to make it. But if you think about it in a movie, when you see the fire and the smoke coming towards you, that's what I saw. My first instinct was not go to GQ, was not trying to save the ship or anything. I wanted to go outside of the skin of the ship. So I started heading aft, and like a bunch of us did. And that's when the XO came, and he said, we've been hit. Go to the GQ station, because the 1MC was not working. So the first thought that came to my head was, I need to go to radio, because that was my GQ station.
Okay.
Right? But as that's happening, I'm seeing all the commotion, because now I'm going from aft. I got to go towards the midships, because that's where radio is, a little bit forward. So I'm heading down that way, and as I'm going there, I noticed something that I didn't notice at the time, but whenever I recall the story, I think to myself, I was closing hatches without being told to do that, because that's what you do when you go to GQ. Mm-hmm. Like muscle instinct, memory, instinct. I was doing things that I've been trained to do without anybody having to tell me to do that. And that was across the board. I wasn't the only one. Like the ship was doing that as a whole. So yeah, that's the first thought that came to me. It was like, go to radio. And then once I was in radio, my chief was like, hey, we don't have any power. I have 2 other people for the combination, just in case we need to do certain things. I need you to go to your old repair locker. So my old repair locker was repair 2, which is out forward. I headed down that way, and there was either a chief or an officer. I just remember they had a khaki belt. I can't remember their face right now or name. And he was like, hey, all the repair, all the damage control is happening in repair 3, which is back aft. So now I have to head from all the way up forward to back aft. On my way back aft, I see a body covered by a blanket. And I don't know, something told me to look. Nobody told me to do that. I felt like doing it. And I took the blanket off, and it was a shipmate, someone that I actually used to hang out a lot with, because we were in the same duty section. And I couldn't tell who he was, because he had so much metal. The only reason I knew who he was when I saw his name tag. And that's when the sailor went away, and little 19-year-old Amaury Ponciano came to mind, and I just lost it. I started crying. That's the first time that it hit me.
That this is
there's people injured, hurt, dying. And I just started crying. You never know how you're going to react until that time comes. Mm-hmm. I say that to say that there was people from other, like, higher rankings, different backgrounds that just froze. Not because they were not trained or didn't want to do anything.
Just like the body.
They just never done nothing like this have they seen, right? And then there was others, like a very young OS that he was a seaman, that he took over one of the fire parties because he was one of those that like could still remember everything that we were trained and was not in shock. So but I will say though, as the shock started to get away, like in my case, after the crying and I was able to like focus, all the training that we've been doing, it really paid off. I can honestly tell you that I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the other men and women that took all that training, all those GQs that we just, another GQ and another drill. There's a reason for that, right? And the crew was amazing. To see people that you were very close with, right? So think about the two of you guys talking about how close you were. When you go to an even smaller ship and you are part of all these evolutions, they take a lot of hours, and there's all these things that like, you know how we as human, we kind of, you know, when things get tough, we become even closer. So we were a very close niche as an entire crew. To see people that you really care about, you know, being hurt or dead, and yet perform, the more I think about it through the years, the more amazed I am by like the things that a lot of people did. Right. I did my job, you know, to the best of my ability, but I didn't save any lives. I didn't do nothing heroic, right? But there was a lot of people there that you know, carry bodies, that they did things that saved lives, that saved the ship. And it was all because of that training, right? And then again, I was able to react a certain way because the way I grew up, I grew up in a country where there was war and strikes and things. So I saw a lot of things growing up that most kids don't. So, you know, having to snap rather quickly, like, is because of my background, unfortunately. But there's other people that wanted to do all kinds of things and wanted to perform what they were trained to do, but they just couldn't because they've never seen a dead body.
Yeah.
You know, but credit to everybody, because even those, like I said, they got to a point where they did snap and they did do what they were supposed to do or told to do.
How did the Cole situation made you the leader you are today?
Oh man. So again, I'll go back to IT1, Blood Cell, my very first LPO, right? Even he was one of those that was injured. So he was like shipped out of the ship or taken away from the ship like within hours. But even then, as he was like literally being carried out because he broke his jaw, he was still giving instructions and asking,
Wow.
and asking for people. Yes. And it wasn't a good way. It was more like, hey, have you found someone? So, because, you know, that's what it became after things kind of settled. It was like, where is so-and-so and where is so-and-so? Mm-hmm. So he was still asking about that. Do we have enough people in radio to take care of what we needed to take care of if something else would have happened? I didn't see so-and-so. And I remember telling him, like, just be quiet, man. You have a broken jaw. Like, just go. So that's that. And then something else is, as I became more of a supervisor role than LPO, unfortunately, and even my first year as a chief, unfortunately, I was a really bad leader. But you wouldn't be able to tell from the outside. And this is how. My division's high performance. Everybody's East-West qualified and all the qualifications that they need, and, you know, all the PQS's maintenance, we passing inspections with like the highest scores and all this other stuff. But if you would have asked me what's IT2's, you know, kid's name or wives or how many kids, maybe I not even know the actual name, but how many? I don't know.
You're just there to like get the work done.
And then not only was that, then I was even worse because I had this extremely high standards. And then if you didn't meet those high standards, even if you were giving me your 100%, right? Because they were not to my 100%, then you were not good in my eyes. And thankfully, I had a Master Chief that pulled me to the side and said, you messing up big time. And I was like, what you talking about? You know, I put the stuff on paper, you know, like, hey.
Everyone's qual.
Everybody's qual. And we just passed this insert, which is, you know, big deal. And he's like, yeah. And then he gave me that example. Do you know IT2 is dealing with a divorce right now? Well, he didn't tell me. Of course he's not going to tell you. Because the moment that he's going to come talk to you, you asking him about his next PQS.
Yeah, like you have not fostered a culture.
Yeah. Scared to open up.
Yeah. So it took that and, you know, and stumbling and making mistakes. Thankfully, it was nothing to ruin someone's career, and it wasn't to that point. Or I don't think it was, it probably was detrimental as far as their mental health, if I'm being honest, because I was writing them so hard. But, which is crazy enough, as someone that was going to counseling for mental health and all that sort of stuff, here I am at work. But I think unfortunately, it was a way to, I because of my childhood, I'm always, even to this day, I have this thing about proving myself, right? So, you know, how can I be a great chief as my division is doing everything, no matter what the consequences are to the people? So with time, it's how I have become better, and by seeing the good things on other leaders, right? Because even that Master Chief on the destroyer that put me to the side, he was amazing from day one. I wish I would have been like him from day one, but I wasn't. Because ultimately, you have to see it yourself that you're not doing the right thing, right? But thankfully, because I had a lot of respect, and I still do for him, I listen. And little by little, I still have my moments, don't get me wrong, even now as the Master Chief, where, you know, you know, there's this expectation, and sometimes I gotta like tell myself, like, calm down. You know, that sailor might be giving you their 100%. It's just simply not your 100%, right? But doesn't mean it's wrong. It's because if you're giving me everything you have, like, I can't ask you for more, right? And that's why it's important to get to know your people. Because your 100% might be way up here, mine is down here, and yours could be down here. But it's sorry, but it's your 100% though, right? It's all you have. It's what you could give to the organization, and that's gonna change. And even me, who might think that mine is super, there's gonna be someone that's higher. That's why no matter what generation we're in, and, you know, depending who you talk to, you know, when I came in, my generation was not going to be able to deal with conflict if you ask the generation prior. And if you ask some people today, they'll say that you guys are not able to do that. And
we've seen the comments.
I'm a firm believer. That's a lie. Right? Because everybody that joins the military and the Navy as a whole, especially the Navy, does it with a purpose, right? Nobody just joins to be like, I'm just gonna be a troublemaker, or no matter what it is, even if you only want to join for 4 years or you want to do a career, you have something in mind. There's a goal attached to it. And 99% of the time is, I want to do something better, right? So when you have that in mind, and then you add, you know, that camaraderie and that goal setting of like, we're all here for one reason, and I'm gonna take care of you the same way you're gonna take care of me, then yes, we might have some casualties, because that will happen. That's war, right? But we will still be victorious because of the people. It won't be because of material condition. It won't even be because of people who make the rules and telling us what to do. It's because of the people that will be on these ships and these planes and these commands and shoreside. Like, that is what's gonna make the difference. And I'll take you guys today, any day, just like I would 20 years ago.
Well, let me ask you. I want to actually kind of circle back to what you were talking about before about the mental health, and how when you joined, it wasn't a prominent thing, but nowadays you're seeing more and more. I know you have a special tie with Warrior Toughness.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Warrior Toughness is dear to my heart, right? Not only do I try, I go around to the different commands and teach it, but I also, I try to talk about it as much as I can, anywhere I can. You put me in a group to speak, and I'll talk about it all day. Too many times, a lot of sailors, for some reason or another, don't see themselves as warriors, or you don't need to talk to me about toughness. I'm tough. So what I try to tell people is then if those two words don't jive with your mindset, then take it to the side and just think about peak performance. That's pretty much what warrior toughness is about. Well, if I need you to be at your peak performance, or if I want you to be at your peak performance, then I gotta make sure that you're taking care of your brain as well, your mental health, right? So that's why it's important that we talk about it, understand that it is an issue. It's just like anything else in life, any relationship, right? In this case, it's a relationship with sailors, but any relationship, if you go home and you have a significant other or your children, things are not gonna get better until you acknowledge that there's an issue, if there is, right? And there is an issue that we have, right, as a society, because we're just an example of society. So I feel like the Navy is taking the right step, and DOD as a whole, into making it that it's not a bad thing to ask for help. That, for me, the biggest thing for a long time, it hasn't been a thing for a very long time, but there's still some sailors that worry about because of their clearance. I can tell you right now, as someone that has a top secret clearance, I've been going to mental health and some sort of counseling and being seen for PTSD for over 24 years. There hasn't been one time that my clearance has been denied. There hasn't been one time that a job has been, no, you can't pick that job because of, But it's important that things like warrior toughness, where we teach you just simply tools that you probably already know about them, but we just phrase them in a simpler way, because what it does, it just allows you to perform and do things to be the best you, not just in the military, but as a person. Because the better you are as an individual, the better you are as a sailor, the better you are for the mission. And that's why I believe that warrior toughness is so important, right? Because it also tells you about what we like to call your why, your purpose. So I'll give you an example. During the Cole, the whole tragedy, you could have told me to, I don't know, do whatever. Stand watch for 36 hours straight, as long as I could come back to my mother. That was my why. Anything you told me to do, I would do it, because if that meant that I was gonna be closer to my mother, then I'm gonna do it. That was my why. I didn't understand that back then, but I know that now. As I gotten older, that's shifted to my children, right? And then now it's like, I have my fiance, my children still, like that. There's a purpose of anything that you do. And I feel like warrior toughness tries to teach you that. We should all have a purpose. We should all have, because there are days that are gonna be dark. We all got demons, we all got issues, we all have things that happen in life, right? So there has to be something that when the room is dark, when the thoughts get ugly, that you could say, no, I'm not gonna do anything to harm myself, or I'm gonna look for that help because I gotta be better for my daughter, because I gotta be better for my spouse, or I gotta be better for my family. Whatever it is that will keep you to try to achieve those goals. And warrior toughness teaches you that, or at least brings that to your occasion. Because I ask that question every time I'm teaching the class. What's your why?
Well, I'm very thankful that you could pass that knowledge on to us, especially in our career. And I'm very thankful that you wanted to come out and join us on this episode.
Well, thank you.
The very first episode. Well, that is... I feel like we could do another 2 hours. I feel like we could do a whole season of talking with you. I really do appreciate it, Master.
Maybe a part 2.
I mean, if it's being asked of us, we're here to do what the people ask. Well, first I want to pitch one more thing. All right, this is separate from this episode. We are releasing, if you do want to find out more about the Cole, we are releasing another podcast to follow along this one, Tides of Time. And that one will be a little bit different from this one. It will be more of a historical retelling, where we take the chance to tell these Navy stories in a more gritty and more
Realistic.
authentic
Yeah.
way. And I really do highly recommend you check that out after you check this one out to really get more insight.
And if you would like to learn more about warrior toughness, visit the Naval Education Training Command at www.netc.navy.mil/warrior TAC toughness. That is a TAC, that's a dash for your non-military people.
So that's the first episode of Midrats, and I feel pretty good about that. You know, we've done what we came here to do, and I really do thank you guys. So
Thank you.
get back to your watch.
Yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.